Students, I can see you, so don't leave the session. This is for you people only. Okay, can you see the screen? Anyone? Unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Is my voice audible or shall I raise my volume?
No, ma'am. It is perfect.
Okay, okay, okay. Now let us continue with the previous part, and once we finish, once again we will be having a little revision on it. Okay. Now last time we discussed the reasons of for uh, the effect on the biodiversity, how biodiversity got affected because of which reasons and all, isn't it? Now we are going to study and continue this topic with the uh, uh, reason, that means how we can conserve this biodiversity, how we can help to conserve biodiversity. So there are basically two main types of conservations. One is in situ conservation and the other is ex situ. In situ is within that particular area, within the area where this biodiversity is available. That means saving of the organisms or the life, maybe plant, animal, whatever the life within that area. That is in situ conservation. And when outside that original living form or living area, when we conserve those organisms, maybe plants, animals, birds, whatever, then that is ex situ type of conservation. So in situ conservation is usually seen in the ideal conservation strategy, whereas ex situ conservation can provide a backup solution to in situ conservation projects. That means in addition to in situ, we can provide a backup, means additional support to conserve biodiversity. That is ex situ. Outside the natural environment, when we are helping to save the biodiversity, that is ex situ. Whereas in situ is what? Within the natural environment. Now, under this, there are different ways. Well, first, in situ conservation, we will see that is on-site conservation. First, national park, then sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, sacred groves. These are some of the examples where in situ conservation can take place. That means within the natural environment, atmosphere, we can save. Then ex situ conservation, that is off-site conservation. There are different ways, that is cryopreservation, in vitro culture, gene bank. These are the additional methods to support in situ conservation, which comes under ex situ conservation. Now one by one we will see. First, in situ conservation, that is on-site conservation. It is the process of protecting an animal species in its natural habitat. The benefit is that it maintains recovering populations in the surrounding where they have developed their distinctive properties. For example, biodiversity hotspots. That means those are the areas where naturally some of the animal species, plant species, insect species, whatever that particular organism, those are observed more. Maybe you can say endemic, means they are therefore living there, their natural environment is available over there, that is suited, the atmosphere, that environment is suited to those organisms. So biodiversity hotspots are one of the examples. Now it gives maximum protection and they are characterized by very high levels of species richness and high degree of endemism. Just now I was telling you, endemic to that area. That means in that particular local area, in that particular area only these species are observed, because that particular atmosphere and the environment is suitable to stay and live in that natural way. And species richness is also more. Different types of species, variety of species are observed because the environment is suitable to live. So this is what biodiversity hotspots. So it is a biogeographic region with a significant reservoir of biodiversity that is under threat of extinction from humans. So these are reservoirs, very important, and should be saved from the interference of human beings. So that is under threat of extinction from humans. It is the area where the species rich in that area, living in the area, are threatened by the interference of human beings. So biodiversity hotspots are Earth's biologically richest and most threatened terrestrial ecoregions. These are the regions where they are rich in species diversity, but they are threatened by the interference of human beings. The concept of biodiversity was proposed by Norman Myers. There are about 34 biodiversity hotspots in the world. As these regions are threatened by destruction, habitat loss is accelerated. Examples, for example, Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma region, Himalayas in India. These are some of the examples of hotspots, biodiversity hotspots. There are overall 34 biodiversity hotspots all over the world. And these are threatened because of their destruction, habitat loss, there is encroachment by other species or human beings in the area where these animals, these species are living. Ecologically unique and biodiversity rich regions are legally protected. So biosphere reserves, there are 14, national parks 90, sanctuaries 448. Some of the wildlife sanctuaries in India you must be knowing also. So these are some of the examples, biosphere reserves. An area which is set aside minimally disturbed by the conservation for the conservation of the resources of the biosphere is biosphere reserve. So what is biosphere reserve? That is an area with minimum disturbance of others. Means in that particular area only naturally living animals, birds, insects, plants only can grow and live and stay. There is minimum interference of others, means human beings, and minimum disturbance. So these are protected areas where there is no encroachment or there is minimum disturbance of other species or human beings, you can say directly. So latest biosphere reserves 17th in India is Sirisha Chalam Hills, that is Tirumala, Andhra Pradesh. You must be knowing also where that area is reserved. Next, that example of national parks. There are so many national parks. These are the natural habitat strictly reserved for protection of natural life. So, natural parks across the country offer a fascinating diversity of terrain, flora, and fauna. So, these are the examples of national parks and biosphere reserves. These are the examples of in situ conservation. Now, these are some of the examples of important national parks in India. That is Jim Corbett National Park. That is considered to be the first national park in India, which is there in Uttarakhand, located in the Uttarakhand region, state of India. Kaziranga National Park, everybody must be knowing, Assam. So, that is for rhino, one horn rhino. Then Kasu Brahmananda Reddy National Park in AP, Andhra Pradesh, Mahavir Harina Vanasthali National Park in Andhra Pradesh, then Keoladevi Ghana National Park in Rajasthan. These are some of the examples. The next category of saving or preserving the species is sanctuaries. Specific endangered faunal species are well protected in wildlife sanctuaries. Sanctuaries permit ecotourism. So how they are different than national park? They permit ecotourism, and generally the fauna, that animal species or bird species, these are protected. Specific type of bird species, specific type of animal species, they are protected in their natural habitat. So in the wildlife sanctuaries. So ecotourism is allowed, that is as long as animal life is not disturbed. So without disturbing their life, natural life, their ecotourism is allowed. Some of the important sanctuaries in India are in Andhra Pradesh, so many, that is Koringa Sanctuary, Etunagram Sanctuary, that is Papi, Kondalu Sanctuary. These are some of the examples you can remember. These are the wildlife sanctuaries, Warangal, and last example or the type of in situ conservation is sacred groves. These are the areas smaller than the forest, but these group of trees which are considered to be smaller than forest region area, but they are protected. That means there is no interference. That is considered to be grove. So grove is nothing but a group of trees than a forest. That is smaller group of trees than a forest. So a group of trees of special religious importance to a particular culture is called sacred grove. In these regions, all the trees of wildlife were venerated, respected, and given total protection. That means that particular area is considered to be the, for example, we call it as like in Maharashtra also there are some regions uh, which are considered to be the sacred groves, where these are meant for some religious purpose only. There is no interference of human beings in that area. Okay, so like Devrai. So these are also considered to be, Devrai is one of the examples of sacred groves, where these are considered to be the religious areas where there is no interference of human beings, and so that's why that area remains undisturbed. Naturally, it can be saved. Some of the examples, names of sacred groves in India, these are given the states in Meghalaya, Rajasthan and Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh. So these are some of these states and their names which are listed in this, considered to be sacred groves in India. Meghalaya, sacred groves are the last refuges for a large number of rare and threatened species. So in some areas, these species are becoming extinct. So to save these species, these threatened species, which are in the on the path of extinction, this is considered to be the most important example. Now, the next type is ex situ conservation. Threatened animals are taken out of their natural habitat and placed in special settings where they are protected. This includes zoological parks. Now, how it is different than the national parks? In national parks, they are saved in their natural habitat. But there are so many animals which are on the path of extinction. Their number has become very low. And to save those particular animals, organisms on the earth from being extinct, these are taken out from their natural habitat, because there are least chances of safety for those organisms in their natural habitat. So these are taken out of their natural habitat and placed in a special areas where these are protected. So advancement in ex situ preservation techniques such as cryopreservations are helping us protect endangered species. Now endangered species means their number has become very low and they are in danger to become extinct. So this cryopreservation means saving those means which are almost in, by this way we can save so many species of plants also, and very rare species of plants and animals also, by keeping it under a minus 196 degrees Celsius. So cryopreservation is the preservation of gametes, embryos of threatened species at around minus 196 degrees Celsius. So this is also one of the methods of ex situ conservation, where outside their natural habitat, as its number has gone very low, where there are least chances of remaining on the natural habitat, so they are saved by this way. So in vitro culture, gene banks are mostly used for plants. In vitro, vitreous is what? Glass. So inside the glass means outside the natural way, inside the glass. These are preserved by using gene banks, means genes of those rare, endemic, endangered, threatened, all these species, rare species, these are protected by using gene banks. Their genes, now there are different ways of gene banks also. So by using, you have studied also DNA. While when you studied RDNA technology and all that time, you studied two types of gene banks also. So in this way, we can save. We are now able to save so many plant species, and even in case of animal species which are almost on the path of extinction, those their genes also can be saved in using this in vitro technique. IUCN, you must have heard also, Red Data Book, where International Union for the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. IUCN is the world's main authority on the issues of conservation status of species. All the threatened species are listed in the Red Data Books published by IUCN. Red Data Book, that is what? These are all on threatened species. They are on the path of extinction. Means their number has become endangered. They are in danger. So endangered, rare. Their number has gone so less. That is very rarely they are found at particular area only. So that those rare and extinct means almost they are not there on the earth itself. They are vanished from the nature, earth. So conservation of wildlife in India, how it is done? First is by legislation. Laws are made, acts are made. So the legislation is first one of the methods where under the provision of the Wildlife Act of 1972, killing endangered wild animals is strictly prohibited. And if it is done, then these are the human beings or whoever they are involved in, they are punished. So trading wildlife products like tusks, rhinos, horns, etc. is a punishable offense. Means they are punished if for that tusks from elephants and then horns of rhino, they are very important not only for the ornamental purpose but for medicinal use also. Even in our India, the number of the tigers has gone down. Not only in India, in Asia itself. That is because of, you must be knowing that the bones, they are used in the Chinese medicines. Chinese people, they use in their medicines the ash of bones from the tiger. So their number in their area has almost gone down, and now they encroach our area, Indian region, and from there also, black using the ways, means unofficially they are killing this our national animal, and that's why the number has gone down. Now the next is what? Preservation by the same way, that is national parks, sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, sacred groves, etc. are different regions which are earmarked to protect diverse fauna and flora. Then organizational protection means organizations are made on semi-government organizations. Some are the government organizations, some are private organizations which are set up to prevent destruction of India's wildlife. Wildlife Protection Society of India, Dehradun, this is one of the examples. Then Zoological Survey of India, that is done in Kolkata. This is the organization which are helping conservation of biodiversity. For this Earth Summit in 1992, that is Rio de Janeiro, that was conducted, and it is the collective responsibility of all nations to protect the diverse living forms on the planet. So, World Summit on Sustainable Development, where in South Africa, Johannesburg, that area, that name you always remember. Sometimes previously it was used to be for EVS. This was very common. That is Rio de Janeiro, that is Earth Summit in 1992. It was very famous, and so many things were decided, so many points were decided, and different nations had participated, and they made few laws, acts, and yes, and so they focused on significant reduction in the current rate of loss of biodiversity at the global, regional, and local levels. Efforts must be intensified to pass on our biological legacy to the future generations. One more thing you always remember, if today's generation is using whatever the natural things which are we are getting from the nature, if the nature is disturbed and it is lost, then how the next generation will be able to get the benefit from it? It may be not only just the forest trees and all, or the whatever the things we are getting from the forest, but if these plant species, animal species, these are not safe, if they become extreme, they vanish from the earth, how the next generation will come to know that benefit of all those species? So this is very important, and this next generation, means all the people on the earth should get the benefit of nature, and that can be done by saving the nature itself. Now, these are some of the species which are considered to be threatened species in India: Asiatic lion, black buck, red panda, lion-tailed macaque, tiger, Kashmiri stag, elephant, pygmy hawk, Siberian crane, slender loris. These are some of the examples of threatened species in India. So these all should be saved. You must be knowing that Asiatic lion also is seen only in a particular area like Gujarat, and even tiger. There are few states of India where only that particular area it is observed, isn't it? So these all should be saved. This is what the example, even in your textbook itself, a very motivating example is this. That is for conservation. See the woman from the rural area, how she got inspired, and how she is get and inspiring so many others for saving those seeds, seed bank and all. She doesn't know anything what exactly seed bank, but she knows the importance of all these original wild varieties, so that these can be saved and carried forward for the next generation, and how it becomes helpful to protect the environment. So Rahibai Popere, that is the seed mother of Maharashtra, she is known now as a seed mother of Maharashtra. Hailing from remote village in Ahmednagar district, Rahibai runs seed bank for 54 crops and 116 varieties. Crops include wild varieties of brinjal, guava, mango, spinach, methi, millets, pulses, hyacinth beans, and peas. She also trains farmers and students for seed selection, enhancement of soil fertility, pest management, and control. She is among three Indians on BBC list of 100 women in 2018. See, so brave, isn't it? So this is a very good example. You can remember now. I don't know the name, but I have read last year in the newspaper that one of the lady only from Kerala, she also has done not exactly the seed bank, but she has started planting the trees at the age of her at around 30s she started, and now she is more than 80, and every day she used to plant a small plantlet, and in this way she has turned that particular area into forest. Even such type of example is seen, I don't remember the name, I have read, but that this example is there by one of the uh, Adivasi in Assam. There also, that person also has done the similar type of work, where now because of the that floods and all that happens in Assam every year, isn't it? Because of the plantation of those particular species in that area, to some extent, control over the floods has been done, and he has been awarded by Padma Shri also. I don't remember the name. As and when I will get the name, I will send you on the group. So this is what everything these people are doing a great work. So we should start from our level, that we should save the environment by keeping the surrounding clean, then not using the plastics, then taking care of a nearby area where you should not cut the plants. You should protect the small birds around your area, in your area, by giving them food or water or saving them in this way. On your level, if you start, you can have that then you can inculcate in yourself and it can be passed on. See, Rahibai is just only one example, you know, but there are so many people which are having their traditional knowledge. They have the traditional knowledge, not only in case of agriculture, in case of food, but there are so much of knowledge there present, but because of these new technologies and all, we have lost a lot of traditional knowledge, and now this is the time we should continue using and passing this traditional knowledge to our the next generation. And we first should take it, learn it, and then you can pass it to the next generation. So this is what about the biodiversity conservation in C2, X2, X2. This is the chart, and I will just revise. This is the end of the chapter, but I will just revise this um, entire one. But before that, I just stop my recording and then I will